Hey y'all, this is AL Think Madame, and this is going to be a thoughts post, unfortunately, about the foolishness that has been going on in Houston surrounding that case where the children had been left at home alone for months, and the child thought to call the police. All earlier yesterday, all day yesterday, literally all day yesterday, everything that came in about this story was just like, okay, what is going on for real? Then the last thing before what I just saw an update on said that the parents had been tracked down and they were interviewed and released. And everybody was just like, okay, so what is going on here? The comment sections were flooded on every major news outlet and like entertainment site and like places that a lot of people find out stuff first if it's not on the actual news. And you already know almost everybody was like, oh, well, they must have been not black. These must have been non-black people. Like that's what it had to be, because what you mean to tell me is that the parents was going by the house feeding them, not living there with them, and just pretty much throwing off some food every now and again, and there was a dead body in the house, and it took the child calling the police and saying that this is what the situation was for somebody to show up and know what was going on. But anyway, I'm about to insert a very short clip of what has happened to get y'all up to speed, and I'll be right back.
We've all been following 3 children found alone in a home, along with skeletal remains of another child.
At noon today, investigators have ruled the cause of death for those remains was homicide. Here's Anayeli Ruiz.
It's a story that shocked the community. 3 boys found living alone here at this apartment off of Greencrest, all while the remains of their brother were in the next room. Today, the medical examiner's office releasing the cause of death for that 9-year-old little boy, ruling his death homicidal violence with multiple blunt force injuries. The boy has not been identified at this time. We've also learned the boys attended Alief ISD. The school district says the last time they were in school was in May of 2020. They never went back to school after that. The school district says they made several attempts to contact the mother and even visited the apartment back in September of 2020, but they were not able to reach anyone. The school district says the mother had 2 truancy cases for 2 of the boys. One case was for 2019 and the second was for 2020. But the cases were not prosecuted by the Harris County DA's office during the pandemic. We do know that the boys are in foster care, but still so many unanswered questions like who was paying the rent and why hasn't anyone been arrested? But we're hoping to get more details as the investigation continues. Anayeli Ruiz, KHOU.
Okay, y'all, so let's get into this foolishness. First of all, I want to credit the place where I got this from, which is Tea in the Shade on Instagram. Tea in the Shade. They ended up getting the clip from a news affiliate that's in Houston, and I guess it's KHOU 11 News. But anyway, I wanted to make sure I did that because I'm not trying to take nobody's credit or get no shine. I just legit want to discuss this because it's just infuriating, at least to me. So anyway, let's talk about what was said. Okay, so this is what it was, y'all. The mother of 3 children found abandoned in a Houston area apartment has been arrested, and her boyfriend has been charged with murder in the death of a 4th child, according to Sheriff Ed Gonzalez. The 8-year-old victim, whose skeletal remains were found in an apartment with his 3 brothers, was ruled a homicide with blunt force injuries, the medical examiner's office said. The boyfriend, 31-year-old Brian Coulter, is accused of killing the boy in 2020, according to Gonzalez. The children's mother, 35-year-old Gloria Williams, is charged with felony injury to a child by omission, failure to provide medical care, and failure to provide adequate supervision. Gonzalez said there could be additional charges. Both Coulter and Williams are in custody. They were both originally questioned Sunday night and released. The charges were filed Tuesday after the autopsy determined it was homicide. The horrific story came to light Sunday when the 15-year-old called police and told them he and his brothers had been living in the apartment by themselves for months with skeletal remains in another room. When deputies arrived, they found remains that appeared consistent with the age provided by the 15-year-old. They said the two youngest boys, ages 10 and 7, appeared to be malnourished with signs of physical injury, according to investigators. Child Protective Services confirmed there was no active CPS investigation at the time the children were found. The agency is seeking emergency custody of the boys. And the boys are currently in foster care, Below is the statement CPS released to the news outlet. To ensure the safety of the children, the Department of Family and Protective Services is seeking emergency custody of the 3 boys. Child Protective Services does have history with the family, but there was no active CPS investigation at the time the children were discovered. Okay, so my issue is this. They've already had history with their version of DHR. I don't know if theirs is considered to be the Department of Human Resources, where a case was open to Child Protective Services, but that's already a red flag for me. So whatever was going on before, I'm not understanding. Y'all already saw in the video that there was already some truancy stuff going on right before COVID and during COVID. So a lot of stuff could not get addressed in court, because I know at least back home, they take truancy very, very seriously. Like my aunt used to have to call out from work because my cousin wasn't showing up for school. And he was smart. He just didn't want to go to school no more. He wanted to be caught up in that life. And I was just like, why though? Like, he legit could have been a professional football, basketball, or baseball player, because he was amazing at all of that. Like, everybody, all the recruiters and things would have been at the school for him. But he just wanted to be caught up in the fast life, fast money, and all that foolishness. And I'm just like, for what? But anyway, so yeah, I'm just very disturbed that CPS was already involved with these folks before. I already feel like there are people who are going to look at a picture of the mama and be like, well, you can look at her and tell something ain't right with her. Look, most of these people that do all this stuff look how they look and are perfectly fine. And whether there actually is a mental situation going on or not, somebody got to pay. I'm sorry. Somebody got to pay. And I hate stuff like this, because there are so many people out there desperately trying to get pregnant and carry a child. But this heifer done had all these kids, and this is what she doing. All up under a raggedy man. All up under a raggedy man instead of taking care of her children. It just sickens me. It sickens me. It is very sickening. I hate it. It really disturbs me. So for those of y'all who don't know my background, I went to school for social work. I have my bachelor's of science degree in social work. Acquired it from Alabama State University in Montgomery, Alabama. Right out of college, I was offered a job to work at the Department of Human Resources in Montgomery, Alabama, which is where I did my internship as well. Loved working there. Social work is everything. I hate public speaking. I am super nervous when I do any kind of public speaking or anything like that. But when it came to social work, everything just flows, because apparently that's what I'm meant to do. I am not a social worker in the state of Alabama, at least at the time when I was practicing. You can practice as a social worker if you have that degree for a certain amount of time until you pass the licensure. The licensure is something that I did not pass there. And I had to either say, okay, y'all got to fire me, or I have to tell them that I am turning in my letter of resignation, and just turn in a letter of resignation and just do what I got to do. My plan was to do that and then come back as a caseworker, because you didn't have to have all of that, and everything that you had to go through was a whole lot less strenuous, and it was almost easy to come in under that, and then I could take my time getting my licensure. That didn't work out because of some personal stuff that I was doing, and that was my fault. Well, partially, but the main reason was because Alabama at the time went on a hiring freeze. If I had waited instead of moving away, I would have been on the list of one of the first few people that they would have called in so that I could actually be a caseworker. I would have basically been able to come straight in as a caseworker because I'd already done my testing, all that stuff, whatever. So anyway, y'all, I said all that to say this. When I was a social worker, I was a child protective social worker, and I was very hands-on with my clients. I didn't play games when it came to my clients. I had 20-something cases. Like, the most we're supposed to be able to carry is like 18, 21, something like that, in that actual department. So every now and again, something would happen and we might have to do a couple of more, but that's still a pretty big caseload. That's why it always blows my mind when I hear that a lot of other places have ridiculous amounts of cases. And I'm like, how do you have time? Like, I used to have to plan out my time. There were some people who I saw several times a month, even if they were not at risk. A lot of my cases, the people were at risk. If you are at risk, I have to lay eyes on you, mainly your children, at least once during that month, whether they're at the schoolhouse, whether they're at a church, whether they are at some event. Didn't matter if they was at a therapy session, dentist appointment, didn't matter. I had to lay eyes on them. A lot of the times I had to do home visits, and I would go in the house and make sure the water was running, making sure that it was clean, making sure that the children had adequate clothing. Food was in the house, the bare necessities. The bare necessities. And even when there were times where it looked like it was like a little sketchy, meaning like might not have been that much food in the refrigerator or something like that, there were times we would go in our own pockets because that particular department is underfunded, really not funded at all, if you want to really look at it that way, because foster care, they get allotted money. We operated off of donations. So that's why I'm saying it in that way. So a lot of times I would legit go in my pocket and do stuff for my clients. Like I had a client, the little girl, she was always getting straight A's. Her mama was like very, very poor, doing the best she could. She had to leave her husband. He was abusive. Like, it was a lot going on. And that child was never celebrated. And I told her mama my plan. I ended up planning a birthday party for the child. I bought her a cake with her favorite character on it, like a big old cake, y'all. She had a whole big party. One day I took her to Chuck E. Cheese because she made all A's, did everything she was supposed to do. She helped her mama out with her younger siblings, all of that, because she was the oldest child. This child went above and beyond. And there are people like me who are like, okay, I see what you're doing. And I might not get paid a lot, but I'm going to go in my pocket and make sure that your children see that they can be rewarded for their great behavior and amazing grades and them doing what they're supposed to do. Even if you can't do it, with their permission, of course. So yeah, I want to know, see, I'm just that type of person, I need to know the specifics. What was going on when DHR or whatever their department is called had dealings with these people before? Like, was there an investigation happening because somebody said, ooh, the children looking raggedy at the schoolhouse, or the teacher called in and was like, they ain't getting no food here at the school. Y'all might need to go by the house. You know what I'm saying? Because that's the way it was at DHR. There were times that people might have noticed something, and sometimes it's as small as going and checking to see what's going on. Somebody could be going through a hard time. You never know. And we understand that. That's very understandable. Nobody should have to be like, oh, we're going to snatch the kids out the house because somebody going through it right now. You know what I'm saying? Their job laid them off, and they start a new job within the next month. But, we're not going to sit up here and try to make it seem like life don't happen to people. It does. But with us, when stuff like that would happen, if the client would let us know that was going on, or we found it out, we would try our best to pay for stuff for them. we would find ways to pay for lodging if need be. We would pay for food. We would pay for gas, like gas that helps to warm houses, and the water supply that was coming to that house. Like, y'all don't understand. Like, we have actually paid to have a house bombed because they had a flea infestation. Y'all, one of my first times going out to somebody's house as a social worker, not doing my internship. As an actual social worker, I went to this woman's house. It was flea infested. It was summertime. So I had on, like, I guess you could say, like, something that had my ankles out a little bit. Man, when I left her house, my ankles were swelling. Them fleas had been jumping up on me and biting me. I had to get workman's comp. I couldn't come to work. My feet could not fit in my shoes. It was bad. And we paid to have that woman's house bombed twice to get rid of the flea infestation, because, like, the kids were running around with little bites. They had, like, a few. But I'm, like, very, very severely allergic to animal bites. Like, they might be, oh, it's a couple of scratches and I'm good for somebody else. But for me, I'm forever itching. It's doing the most. The saliva that was on that bug that bit me, it is turning me into something else. It is doing something completely different to me. So yeah, I was at one of the places that workman's comp pays for all day the next day, not enjoying nothing, trying to get the swelling down. It was terrible, y'all. I was in pain and I was itchy. Like, it didn't even make no sense. Painful to walk, itchy, all of that. It was just too much going on. But my thing is this. We went above and beyond to make sure that that environment was going to be suitable for those children, because we saw that the mama was actually trying. We saw that the mama was trying. She ended up having, like, these dogs or something that had been in the house before they moved in it or whatever. And that's what it was. And so it was eggs laid in the carpet, had laid eggs in the carpet. That's what it was, y'all. So yeah, that's why I'm just like, I need to know the backstory behind CPS. Like, why were they no longer involved? Why was this no longer an open case? Because of the information that I read, it seems as though the case was no longer open. Now, if the case was no longer open, okay, first of all, was the case no longer open, or was it moved to another city or something like that, or another state? Because I've had to do that before, where you've had to transfer the case because the folks moved. This seems like a case that should have never been closed. So if the case was closed, why was this case taken to case closure? For those of y'all who don't know what a case closure is, it's basically when the person who has this person's case, this family's case, they and their supervisor, at least back where I'm from, this is the way we did it. There was yourself and your supervisor, unless your supervisor was the one who was running the case. Everybody, there was 2 people from each department that would go to a mutual meeting spot in the building, and we would all bring cases if there was a case that we felt that the people were doing exactly what they needed to do and DHR no longer needed to be involved with them, and that they could sustain life on their own. You presented the case from start to finish, why it was open, what happened in between, what these people was doing, in order to make sure that we understood, oh, okay, well, yeah, I agree. And everybody would have to go around the room and say, yes, I agree to it being closed, or people would give suggestions as to what needed to be done in order for the next time you bring it to case closure, it has a definite chance of being closed. So yeah, if this case was brought to case closure, I'm not understanding why, because unless somebody just fell all the way off out of nowhere, it seems as if these people have been off for quite some time. Like, and then, like, is he the father of all the kids? Was he the father of the one he killed? Because he killed the 8-year-old whose skeletal remains were in that other room. I'm just so disturbed and hurt by all of this, because this is unfortunate. And I know a lot of people are going to want to blame so many different people, but in all honesty, I feel like the mama is at fault. That man that she was with is at fault. And Child Protective Services at this point, because they knew of these folks. They've had at least one case open to them before. I don't know if it was one of those situations where somebody alerted them to something and then an investigator went out and they put on the front and they made it seem like it was cool. See, that's another thing I don't like. I don't like when a lot of these places sit up there and a case will be opened to their department and they will let these people know when they come into the house. We didn't roll like that in my department. In Child Protective Services in Montgomery County, we did not do that. Very rarely did we let anybody know who was coming to the house. I know for me, I ain't let them know. Because first of all, most of my clients were drug addicts, had drugs. They were either drug addicts or they were supposed to be getting their life right so they could get their kids back in their life or whatever. Like usually if it was somebody trying to get their kids back, their kids were not in foster care. Their kids were in relative placement. So for me, I had always been proud to say that none of the children who were on my caseload, I never had to put any of them into foster care because I know how it can go. And it seems as though there are very few foster parents that are in it because they love children and they want to see them succeed. So yeah, I had always prided myself on being able to say, oh, I never had to put any kids into foster care. So yeah, some of my clients used to try me. And so I would have to get them. Like the best time to get somebody is right after 4th of July, right after Christmas, right after all these major holidays, all of that, any type of major holiday that's coming up. Oh, are you actually doing what you're supposed to do or not? Oh, okay, let me pop this drug test on you. You got to go that day and get a hair follicle test done, a urinalysis, all of that. Bye. Because don't sit up here and tell me that you've changed. I can hear your words all day. But if you're not proving it, because this was one of the main reasons why your children were taken out of your custody, I ain't trying to hear it. I'm going to need that evidence to prove it to me. So I would pop a drug screen on some of these people that definitely that was the reason why the case was open to DHR to begin with. Like, I ain't play that. I didn't play that mess at all. No, didn't play that at all. So, like I said before, I did home visits. I have been to court with some of these people. Sometimes I would go as moral support for them. Like, y'all don't understand. For me, social work was very, very real. It was very personal. I was very connected to my clients. Most of my clients loved me. The few that didn't were the ones who didn't want to do right and get rid of us. It's like, do what you're supposed to do and your case will be closed. It's that simple. Like, in all honesty, I only was able to take one case to case closure while I was a social worker. I was there briefly as a social worker, but still, I'm just saying, I should have been able to take 5 to 7 at least, really 10, because I had 20-something cases at one point. But people wouldn't act right. And it's like, you can't get mad at me if you ain't doing what you're supposed to do to get us out of your life. You don't want us in your business, but you brought us into your business. And I hate the stigma that is attached to social workers because all social workers are not like what people put out there for social workers to be. I used to hate going in certain neighborhoods when people would announce that I was there because they would see my car after the initial time I came and they found out I was a social worker. They would see my car and they would literally run through the street saying, "This social worker here." Even if I'm not even going to their house, it's like, why are you announced to the neighborhood I'm there? You acting like I'm 12. You acting like I'm the police. Like, what is going on? You acting like I'm a crooked cop trying to find you doing something or trying to plant something on you. And I was legit there to help. So, y'all, I just have a lot of, I feel like I'm left with more questions than answers because it's like, why were they there by themselves? Who was paying for this apartment? Because somebody had to have been paying for this apartment unless in Houston, at that particular apartment complex, they are allowing people not to pay because of what was going on with the pandemic. I know there are a few places that were doing that. They was definitely not doing that here in Virginia. Child, it's like, I don't know what you're talking about. They ain't got to do with us. They was doing that. People was leaving their apartments left and right, going on vacation, doing what they want to do in New York. They ain't care nothing about that in here in Virginia. I was hoping. I was hoping I won't have to come back after 6 months to a year and not have to pay my rent. Because I would have definitely been able to use my money elsewhere on other things that are needed. But yeah, that ain't how it go. So unless it was a situation like that, because I have heard that they are trying to allow people to get their landlords paid through another way, but you have to prove pretty much like a hardship type of situation. And I'm just like, Come on now. But anyway, we ain't even finna get into that. But yeah, y'all let me know how y'all feel about this foolishness. Like, I'm just like, I just don't want the insanity plea to be what it's gonna be. Because I feel like everybody's gonna look at this woman and be like, you can look at her and tell something ain't right. And I just don't agree with that all the time. Like, I feel like just Kanye West. Y'all would have never said this man was any of this mental stuff had he still been rapping the same way he was rapping when he first came out, but just on a deeper level, and not doing the stuff he's doing when he got up under Kim Kardashian's and her family's thumb and all of that, and his mama passing away. Y'all would have never said, oh, he had mental issues all of a sudden. It's like when stuff like this happened, then all of a sudden we gonna blame it on some kind of mental issues. Not to say that people don't. In my personal opinion, I've just got to the point where I feel like most people have depression. Most people have anxiety. Most people have all these things that other people blame for the things that they do. So it's like, can you really use that as a defense anymore? But anyway, y'all, thank you for listening to me. I just wanted to vent about that because that really disturbed me, and I ain't here for that. I'm not here for it. I think that the CPS department that was had prior involvement with these folks need to be brought down to the carpet, and they need to answer some things. Like, I need to know the history. I need to know. Like, I know I ain't nobody. I'm just saying. I want to know. I want to know what was happening beforehand. Like, what was it open for before? Because if it was open for something similar before, where these children were malnourished, you could tell they had been being beaten. It's like, what is going on around here? It's just too much. Like, I need to know what was going on with the mama. Like, yeah, does the mama have a history of mental whatever? Like, everybody just need to be punished at this point. Everybody needs to be punished. Now those kids are in foster care. Ain't no telling what kind of foster parent they're going to have if they are going to be bouncing around from house to house. I don't like stuff like that. I hate that. In all honesty, it's sad to say this, but there are people who are with their blood relatives and they would actually be better off in a foster care type of situation. And I hate that. But I digress. That's a whole nother story. But anyway, thank y'all so much for tuning in. Y'all, please weigh in on this foolishness down below because I do want to discuss it. It's just a lot. It's just too much going on. What y'all think about this? What do y'all think about this foolishness? Like, this man, I'm trying to figure out, why did this man kill this child? What is going on? Then y'all wasn't in the child. It's not like the child was in the house and annoying you. Like, I don't understand. He wasn't even around you. Why? What was the child doing to make you do all of that? It's already bad enough y'all over here, they living somewhere else. Y'all ain't even with them in the same house, in the same apartment. You done went up in the house and killed the child. For what? But anyway, let's talk about this foolishness, y'all.